Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. I'm still like setting up, so give this like 2 minutes, and I also have to check the audio and stuff. Still like troubleshooting and stuff like that because this is my third stream. So if you're watching this later, make sure to skip like 2 minutes or so. I will put the exact time when the stream is good and ready to go in the description. But if you just skip ahead a little bit, it should be fine. But I'm gonna test some stuff for now. So let me BRB real quick. Audio looks like it's good over there. Do, do, do. Hopefully I figure out music this time, but we'll have to check right here. Give me 1 second, give me 1 second. Doop, beep, beep. Loading my own channel up on my laptop. All right. I think this is... Let me know if there is audio problems, but it looks like it's good to go. So let's just get into some drawing here. Today I'm going to try drawing a little bit with these brush pens. This is something I wanted to learn for a while, but they're quite tricky. They're not that easy to use. So we're going to give it a shot, see what happens. As always, there is free references available down below, and there's also like free flower drawing tutorials, like step-by-steps down below that you can check out if you are just getting into drawing. But with that said, let's just jump right into it. Let's see if I can do this freehand on flowers. This is not... Now be forgiving with me here. I'm also learning new skills here. Because I'm so used to using not brush pens, I mean like regular ballpoint pens, and those are very different. Not very, very different, but quite different. Different enough where this is going to be challenging. And I want to learn how to draw flowers just like freehand, like this, without drawing too many guidelines. Obviously, when you're learning how to draw flowers and stuff, I'll always use guidelines, but when you are in the early phase, try to see what you can do without them. So let's do this. I think putting the mic a little bit closer here, see if that helps. Boop. So let's just try to do this. This is not going to be the easiest, but we'll learn. We're learning together here. You get to see all my embarrassing mistakes here. So I'm just like learning how to draw flower petals here without any guidelines. Obviously this isn't something you're going to do right away, but when you're learning a new medium, it's like maybe a good challenge. Just see what you can do. So I'm doing like a simple 4-petal flower, one at a time here. Here we go. Trying to like get used to drawing in different pressures. So the good thing about ballpoint pens and other types of pens is that it's a very consistent line. So you don't have to pay attention to like the pressure as much. But with this, with a brush pen, you have to be very careful of like the angle, the amount of pressure put on, because all those like subtleties show up in the drawing, which also means that like once you get really good at it, you can draw these very beautiful lines that are not possible with a ballpoint pen. So that's kind of the reason why I'm trying to learn this is a little bit of that. It's also because this is a waterproof ink, so eventually I'll be able to add some watercolor and stuff like that too. And so let me just make sure that this is focused here. That's a little bit better. Oh, there we go. Still getting used to like dealing with all the camera equipment and mic and all that. So if you guys do have feedback, feel free to let me know. I'm doing my best, but it is also hard to troubleshoot all that stuff while I'm going live. Sometimes I don't know if it's just something might sound good on my setup while you guys hear something completely different. So if enough people give me feedback on a specific thing, I'll make sure to try to change that stuff. So I hope you're all having a nice day. Actually, today I went out and took some photos of these beautiful hydrangeas in my, like not close to me, but I saw them on a drive and then I decided to go take photos of them. So that will also be in the free reference folder. I haven't edited those yet, so they're not there right now, but if you use the link below, that's where you'll find them in the future. Probably try to put that together next couple of days. So I'm trying to think of like roses here. Just like, okay, let me draw a rose. Here's the center. One skill that I am trying to work on is just being able to visualize things in my head and drawing it. Now that's some people are better at that. I think naturally some people have that ability. I'm not as good at that right now, but it is. I know it's a skill that you can develop because I've seen other artists develop them. So it's not like it's impossible to learn, but it's not the easiest. Here we go, drawing a rose. I have some printed out reference on by my side, so I can try to have some guidelines about what I'm doing, but also not being too strict with it because I'm more focused on just like learning this new medium. I have heard a lot of art teachers say like switching up mediums is a good way to push yourself if you're like have gotten into a slump of some sort. So you know, that's always a consideration if you've been drawing for a while, but if you're new to it, then I do think that like sticking to one medium for now is a good way, because when you're first developing your skills, it just all mediums feel uncomfortable to a certain degree, because it's just, you know, drawing isn't the most natural thing to do. Mark making, I think it's satisfying to humans in general, but knowing how to make marks on a page is not like the most intuitive thing, because you are making the illusion of 3D space usually on a 2D surface. But once you see someone do it, it's like so magical that you're like, oh, I want to learn that. Because that's how I got into it, you know. I got into it because I thought it was magical. I was like, oh, I want to learn that superpower. And that's how I feel still, right? Like I see people draw and I'm like, oh man, imagine being able to use your hand to make that. That didn't exist until that person like decided to put it on paper. Photography is similar in that way, where it's like capturing these moments that wouldn't be captured if that creative didn't put in that effort to create it. Although I think the initial skill of drawing is a little bit more challenging than photography. Not a value judgment on photography when you're saying like learning to draw. I think if there's the barrier to entry is slightly higher. Like I think it takes a lot more initial effort to like get to a place where you can draw something and actually be decently happy with it. But that obviously also depends on like how critical you are. Here we go. Bum, bum, bum. Here we go. Just like trying to get used to this brush pen. Inking is kind of like the thing that I'm the most interested in, which probably comes from my initial goal of becoming a tattoo artist. So it adds up for me in my mind that like, oh, this is why I have this interest. What you might notice as well is that you, at some point in your life, you might try a bunch of different mediums, and like one just speaks more to you, one makes you more excited. And that's different for everyone. That's not something that any teacher can really tell you. Like no one else outside of yourself can really tell you what it is that you should be working with. So you have to decide what's most fun for you. And depending on your personality, that might be a little bit scary, you know? Sometimes it's easier if some other people can give you the answers. Yeah, these lines, I'm still like very much trying to get used to this brush pen. Let me switch up here to a different one. Just to see how this will look. This one is colored, but it's not waterproof, so I won't be able to add color over top of it, but it's very much like the similar feeling of like a medium where it's very gentle. It's still a brush pen. Not horrible. I have drawn worse things in my life. I'm not being very particular about what flowers I'm drawing. Usually what I find is that once you're like used to drawing a bunch of different types of flowers, you can just make up your own. Like you don't have to be as particular about it. You just like draw petals in a way, in a formation, and it resembles some sort of flower. That way you don't really have to limit yourself as much to be like, oh, I need to draw this very specific type of flower. It's like, no, you can literally just draw some petals connected by a stem somehow, and there you go. It's a flower. I don't know what flower, you know. Although if you layer like this, it usually looks more like a rose, and you know, structurally, it might look like a specific flower, but I like the freedom of that. Like, oh, I don't really have to think about the exact species of flower. I know within myself, like I really have a strong preference for roses, but that's mostly because my parents used to grow a lot of roses, and they still do. So I've always grown up around them, which I know is kind of basic. I know. I think if you surveyed most people, roses might be like the most popular flower. But I also have friends who like really like more simple flowers. I have a friend who really likes daisies, for example, which is very endearing. Oh, ink is flowing quickly. So this is one of the challenges with mediums like this, is that the amount of ink in the brush can adjust. You can see like now it's like blotting really heavily, which I don't know why it suddenly started doing that. That's kind of annoying. Let me take some of this ink off. See what happens here. Yeah, that's like a new challenge that I'll have to get used to. I just had to notice it before I put too many marks down. Maybe it's just the paper I'm using as well. Like I am using a cheaper sketchbook right now. I do really like cheap sketchbooks. Coil bound cheap sketchbooks, that's the way to do it. Yeah, I don't know if you can see this. So this is really going down thick for some reason. Is it the brush pen or is it the specific spot on the paper? Am I losing my sensitivity? It's all part of the learning process, I guess, the failing. speed of brush as well. See, this is why like I do think that starting off with like a pencil is like easier than these types of mediums that are a little bit more finicky. Especially if you're just getting into drawing, pencil is like the most forgiving. I think the place to start for most people. Even if you like want to do painting, it's good to be able to like draw in pencil first, plan it out a little bit, and then go from there. There we go. So feel free to like draw along with me. I think that's kind of, I've said that many times here. If you are just hanging out, having fun, it's also good to relax, but you're already here. You might as well do a bit of drawing, even if you've never drawn before. You could just make some marks on a paper. That's the thing to remember, is that like drawing can be whatever you want it to be. There's no limitations. It could literally just be scribbles on a page, completely abstract. And as long as you find a way to enjoy that, that's truly the only thing that matters. At least that's how I feel about it. Especially if you're like a hobbyist, I don't think you need to like put that like unnecessary pressure on yourself to like be good, quote unquote, whatever that means, you know. It's such an arbitrary thing. Something I notice within myself as well, like it's usually yourself that's gatekeeping whether or not you're good. Well, I get the desire to like impress other people. Ultimately, you just like want to be doing the things that bring you joy, and that is something that can be practiced. You could learn over time to like enjoy things more and more. I think that's one of the few things that I'm actually trying to, not that one of few is probably the wrong word, but one of the things I'm trying to focus on lately is that there's no objective thing that you enjoy. It's usually just like a skill thing. It's a skill issue, if you will, whether or not you're able to enjoy something. You develop habits around the activity that you do. So you can choose to be like, hey, I'm someone who wants to enjoy drawing, so I'm gonna be careful about like my frustration around it. I'm gonna try to be forgiving. I'm gonna focus on ways that bring me joy within the activity, and then over time you can develop your passion for it. It is trained. There we go. Like a daisy. Trying to like draw a petal at different angles. This is very finicky. It is like a... It's quite challenging for me because I'm not used to it, but you know. It's good to try new things. I remind myself so I don't get too frustrated with it. The good thing about a challenging medium like this is it forces you to think, like, be more present with the drawing. I think that's like ultimately why you want to keep challenging yourself, is so that you're forced to focus. And I think like all the greatest joys in life come from like being able to focus. So we're still kind of dealing with the issue of like my camera heating up. just touched it to see if it's getting hot, and it's getting hot again. So we'll see. We're only a couple of minutes into this, but I bought like a new battery type dealio, bought a new cable and stuff to see if that like helps it a little bit, but not sure if that did help. Might have made things worse, if anything. One thing that is interesting is that almost everyone has a history of like solving problems in their life, right? Because that is a majority of your life is just solving problems. But it's easy to forget that you're capable of solving problems, and then you might, not have the confidence when you like face new problems, because it's easy to think like, oh my god, how am I going to solve this? But it's usually because you're forgetting all the things you have solved in the past. It's like right now I'm like stressing a little bit about like this camera situation, but I know if I just think about the fact that I've solved many problems in the past, it will remind me that like, no, honestly, I'll just get through this. There we go. I feel a temptation in myself to just switch back to a ballpoint pen just so I can feel a little bit more comfortable. But that's how I know I just need to stick this out. There we go. A couple of cute flowers. One thing that was interesting about like looking at the hydrangeas today that I was taking photos of is that it's basically like a big clump of flowers. So here, let me just like try to draw that. Like, so if I have a big clump like this, let's just say that's like the overall hydrangea shape. It really is like a bunch of small flowers attached to it. So if you know how to draw a couple of small flowers and you just keep doing that, that's basically what a hydrangea is. Now the challenging part is like getting the different angles of flowers. So like the ones at the top here would be a little bit more seen at an angle like that. All the ones that are here are like facing forward a little bit more. Which that's a little bit challenging, but over time you'll learn that. That's not the hardest thing to learn. Most people learn harder things than drawing in their lives, I think driving is actually harder than drawing. But we normalize it as like a necessity to living. So it's like, it's not seen as special because, well, everyone does it. But we do treat driving as special. Everyone has to do it. Well, not everyone, but the majority of the population knows how to do it, so we don't value it because it's not a unique skill. But there is value in knowing how to drive, and if you learn how to drive in your life, then you know that you can learn different skills. You have the capacity for learning. Which is a good thing to remind yourself of, like when you feel frustrated. Like right now I feel frustrated, so I'm trying to remind myself, hey, try to remember you've learned other skills in the past. And you've succeeded at learning those things, so this is the same thing. Just keep trying. go. A couple of flowers like that. It's like a bundle of flowers essentially. See there, I got sloppy with the ink, and it, like that flower on the right side right here, it's like a bit, the lines are thicker, so that's gonna like throw off the drawing a little bit, but these are like the skills we're working on, right? There we go. I actually like how this is turning out. There we go. Yeah, it's not half bad. Could be worse, you know? Improving. So I'm just going to remind you again, if you're new here, that there are free resources below that you can go check out. I have like a bunch of free references of roses right now that you can go check out, and also other flowers, and I'll be adding hydrangeas to that collection of photo references if you're interested in drawing flowers. I also have like a big beginner drawing course that's like focused on drawing faces and figures, but it's like cartoony, like very beginner friendly. And then I also have a ton of free beginner drawing tutorials as well, all things you can check out below. One thing I will recommend is like try the free stuff first and see if you like the way I teach, and then buy stuff after that. Because ultimately I only want people who actually find my stuff useful to be buying the stuff. One thing that's very satisfying is that like on my analytics I can see like who's on the website at any given time, basically. Well, not who, like I can't see like specific names or anything, but I can see like numbers, like the amount of people that are looking at stuff. And it's like very cool to be like, oh, these are all the many people who are learning to draw from me in a way that is, it's very fulfilling. Because I think this is a magical skill, and I think most people actually feel like drawing's a magical skill. Especially because it's good for like self-reflection and stuff like that. That's actually kind of nice. I like this drawing. Let's add some more here. Yeah, I think he used to like the subtle, gentle touch with this pen. I will be focusing heavily on like flower drawing for a little bit here. And ultimately I think that maybe long term, that's what I'll be doing a lot of. You never really know what will make you happy and what you want until you give it some time. It's like I feel like I'm still in the early phase of this where I'm like, I really like drawing flowers. Maybe that is the main thing I should be focusing my energy on. It is fun, like with this brush pen. One thing that's fun is that you can make areas of black really quickly, right? Like you can just make these areas like darker with this like a light, just by pressing a little bit more. Also, if you guys have topics you want me to discuss, feel free to drop me questions here and there. Even if you're watching this on VOD, I can always answer questions in the next stream in the description. If they are questions that I can actually answer. Don't ask me about the meaning of life. Don't ask me where the universe came from. I am not qualified to answer those questions. If you have art related questions, I do have some answers. At least I like to think I have some answers. I'm not arrogant enough to think I have answers to the meanings of life, but I am arrogant to or have enough confidence that I can answer questions about starting an art practice as a beginner. I do think there's something very magical about being new to a craft. I think you get to experience things in a way that is unique to someone who hasn't done the craft for a long time. Well, I understand why like beginners feel tempted to like get good, like quickly, quote unquote good. Not that you'll ever really actually feel good. Usually, most people feel like they have a far way to go. Always, because the bar just keeps increasing once you like improve. That was a wonky flower. There we go. These are not the best. I think, am I losing steam here? Am I losing focus? I just need to have a stronger intention about what I'm doing. Had a bit of a lazy day today. Didn't get as much work done as I wanted to, but I'm also trying to like be a little bit forgiving, because sometimes, you know, your body and brain just need a little bit more rest than you anticipate. And it's easy to feel guilty about it too, like, oh, I should have done more. Boo-hoo, I'm a bad person because I didn't do the amount of work that would make me more money. You know, isn't that what a lot of these things come down to? Just like trying to survive, especially if you live in like a high cost area like I do. And I mentioned this like a million times, and I'm probably going to keep mentioning it because it's something that stands out to me, is that drawing's like a cheap hobby. Even if you buy courses and stuff, it's like rarely that expensive. Like I also dance as one of my hobbies, and that's way more expensive than drawing. There we go. As much as I love summer, I am excited for the weather to get a little bit colder soon. Because the heat becomes a lot, you know, it becomes tiring to be outside in the heat. But I like being outside, I like going for walks. Yeah, which I think most people who like to draw flowers probably also enjoy the outdoors to a certain degree. Enjoy the outdoors, but don't enjoy mosquitoes, you know what I mean? It's mosquito bites. Those pesky mosquito bites. One thing to keep in mind when you're learning how to draw is also try to find ways to like make it fun for you. Because I like keep mentioning that, but I think it's easy to underestimate how important that can be. There we go. Couple flowers there. Drawing them in bunches like this is very cute. I like how that looks. Let's actually do one more of those. Let me just move my stuff over here. Boop, boop, boop. I need to figure out how to. There we go. Let's do it right there. Maybe like two bunches like this. See how that looks. So I'm just like drawing like a loose guideline here, like where the overall shape would be. And then gonna add the flowers from here. Like that. My stomach isn't too happy with me right now. Maybe I had too much sugar today. Or not enough water. It's usually one or the other. Sometimes I'm quite envious of people who don't have a sweet tooth, because I have a very I like most food. I think that's the real problem. It's not I don't only have a sweet tooth. I like most food. Like I honestly can't think of the last time I've had a bad meal. I had meals where I felt like I paid too much for the meal, but it wasn't. The food was fine. Like I enjoyed the food. Just like I wish I had paid less for it. But I've never had a meal where I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't eaten that at all. If that makes sense. I have friends who are like very picky eaters who I don't understand. I don't understand how you live like that. But it might also be because like at one point I was so broke that I really went hungry. Like lost a bunch of weight because I couldn't afford to eat the amount of food that I should have been eating. So I think that also makes me less picky. Nothing makes you appreciate food more than basically starving. No, I wasn't like starving, but definitely like hungry most of the time. It's part of the university experience. Although sometimes people have like the freshman 15 where they like the first time they move away from home, they have the freedom to buy whatever food they want and end up eating so much junk food that they put on 15 pounds of weight. But that depends on you like having enough money to afford that, which I don't understand that. I can't relate to that experience. So I can sense myself, I'm kind of like getting sloppy with some of these lines. I really need to like be more deliberate. I am also like doing this at quite a small scale, and that maybe I should be working on a bigger scale. That is also something that you can play with as a new art student, is like, what is the scale that I'm drawing at? And what you'll find is that for certain mediums and certain subject matter, it's easier to draw different scales. Like if you draw faces very, very small, sometimes it can be hard to draw the eyes and the details in the eyes and stuff like that. So like that's a subject matter maybe where you draw a little bit bigger. And maybe with flowers, you draw a little bit smaller. Like that's something that you have to play with and figure out on your own. And it's like one of the fun things you get to experiments. That you get to explore. One of the many fun experiments. It's ultimately what all hobbies are. Just a bunch of experiments. Trying different things. Discovering yourself. There we go. Yeah, so I'd add more like variation in sizes here in this one, and I think that looks kind of interesting. Let me draw like a bigger one here. Yeah, I'm getting a lot more loose with it here. I really have to get used to the pressure sensitivity on these brushes. I can hear like the impatient voice in me being like, why can't I just be good at this already? Why can't I draw like with these brush pens like the masters did? You know, the people who have been doing it for 10 years. Why aren't I the same skill level already, even though I just started doing this? And I think that voice in people's heads is like very common, where you like kind of expect yourself to be good at something that you haven't actually practiced. Like I have a lot of friends who will tell me like they tried drawing, and it's like, but how many hours did you actually try drawing? Because if it's under 500, then I don't know if that's really trying. And you might say 500 is an absurd number, but yeah, it is. But did you expect it to be a lot less? Now, if you didn't see any joy or results after during the 500 hours, then I get maybe like, okay, it's hard to like stick to it. But I think most people see some results, especially with the right resources. That's a big part of why I have all those free worksheets on my website, is because I do believe that with those like very tangible exercises, it's much easier to see and feel the improvement. You know, create the resources that you yourself would have wanted. That's kind of my approach to teaching. Because I do think if I had like worksheets that were like hands-on, I would have improved way quicker. Because it's much easier to understand concepts that way, like with hands-on practice. That's very almost like hand-holding, but the hand-holding I think is very, very good. I think when you're a beginner, you want guardrails, and then the better you get, the less guardrails you need. That's because then you have like the confidence and the joy attached to it that makes it easier to explore and explore in a way where you're open to failing. But if you're starting out, it's kind of nicer if you have like enough guardrails where you get to see the results in a way that feels good. That's where like one of the main superpowers in learning something new is like not having a big ego. If you're like okay with failing and you attach your self-worth to the effort that goes into something rather than the outcomes, then all of this becomes easier. Now, I am not one of those people who did that naturally. It's something that I had to actively think about. How can I be less attached to outcomes and more attached to just like the inputs? Like how much effort am I putting into this? There we go. So shape-wise, this didn't exactly turn out the way I had intended, but I still like it. There we go. I like how this looks, like this bunched up flowers. It's also like learning how to where to put like these dark spots, like the shadows essentially. Because you want to break up some of the detail in there. That is something I'm gonna have to study of greater artists. How do they approach it? Maybe I'll learn it intuitively over time. I recently got back into reading. Reading is something that like I love, but I keep falling off the wagon on it. It's like a habit that's kind of hard to keep. But I'm reading this book on it's like a 7 principles of how to keep a healthy marriage, something like that. That's definitely not the title, but it's a John Gottman book. He was a famous researcher in this space. The funny part is that I'm very single, so a book on marriage is funny to read, but it's because like I want to learn these concepts so that I can apply them to friendship as well, you know, not everything. Because I think like those core concepts are just useful to have. Useful to learn how to just be a better person. How to be a better friend is the way I'm thinking about it right now. Because a lot of the concepts like apply to friendship as well. Obviously marriage is like a different intensity of relationship, but ultimately human nature is human nature. The way what works in marriages also help in friendships, you know? Especially when it comes to like listening skills. I think that's the skill that's like the hardest to learn. It's one I'm actively working on, and I have been actively working on for a very long time. It is so tempting, especially when you're tired, to like just focus on the things that you want to talk about and like not pay close enough attention to other people. And the funny thing is that I have a lot of friends. I've met so many people who are that way, right? Like I think that's the norm, but I don't think most people notice it when they do it, you know? Because I don't think people are being selfish intentionally. I think it's just such a hard skill to learn that most people don't think about it. But it also becomes a superpower. Like my friends who are good listeners, they're way more fun to talk to, you know, because it's like way more satisfying to discuss topics with them because you feel so seen. So I know that if I practice that skill, I can also be that good friend to a lot of people. There we go. Look at that. That's not horrible. Could be worse. I've noticed that's something I've been saying a lot to myself lately as a way to like not be too harsh on myself. It's just like, it could be worse, you know? Because sometimes it's hard to be like, it looks good. But you also don't want to be like, it looks horrible. Why did I draw this? And the in-between step to that is like, it looks alright, you know, it could look worse. It's acceptable. It's an acceptable drawing. Maybe not worth being super proud of, but also not worth beating yourself up over. What do I want to draw? Just like, yeah, so the thing with this is like I just have to like get used to like adjusting the brush shape too, because this is like splitting in two right now, so I need to like squish them together. There we go, squish them together. This type of brush pen also would be great if I learn how to do this and like I can take it traveling, because it's I think maybe like when I see people sketch with these, you can do like great things and very quick lines, you know. The only problem is that like traveling is also expensive. It's crazy to me how many friends I have who actually manage to both live their lives, just pay for existing, and also able to travel. Now I know that some people travel cheaply and go to hostels and all that, and that's great and all, but cost of living here is crazy, which I'll try not to complain about, because I'm sure that I complain about it enough to my friends, and you guys already know what's happening. Well, most people do. It's like grocery stores, like, just buying groceries has gotten crazy expensive, depending on where you live, but feels like a worldwide phenomenon. Worse in some areas, but everyone's seen it. Let me switch to ballpoint pen for a little bit, because my brain is like taking a lot of like learning here. This is like not easy. I knew it'd be hard, but as always, you know, a little bit surprised by how hard it is. I should actually just look up some. Let me just look up some references here. How are you guys doing? Hope you're all doing fine. Feel free to like tell me what your favorite flower is and like what's going on with you. I do read all the comments, by the way. It takes me a bit to like get back to people, just because it's, you know, I'm also like focused on actually making stuff for you guys, like a lot of like tutorials and stuff. Like it's not just me being selfish, but I do read them eventually, and I will get around to them. So feel free to like leave comments on the videos about like how are you doing, what's going on with you. I like feeling connected to the people who use my stuff, and that's a great way to do it. You can also email me some of your results. I had someone last stream email me the drawings that they did during the stream, and that's like very satisfying. It's like, oh, we did draw together, like we literally drew together, and that's feels amazing, you know. Let me see if I can find something inspiring to you know what, let's just draw. Let's not try to figure it all out. We can also just like have a little bit of fun here. Just draw like a face and put some plants on it. A face without a mouth is my go-to, because that's something about that feels a little bit spiritual, you know. This is what I'm talking about, like trying to make it fun for yourself. So for me, I found that like doing this like head in the middle and then just like drawing, it's like abstract shapes, make them kind of like organic shapes. I find this very fun. So I know that like if I return to this, if I'm having like a rough day or something, or I'm just like feeling tired, which I'm feeling a little bit tired now because I'm just like pushing my brain to like try to learn this skill, then I know like I could just come back here and just doodle one of these, and that feels really good to me, you know. I wish there was a waterproof ballpoint pen. I should actually look that up. Maybe that exists and I just haven't done enough research on it. Because I do like dip pens, but they are not very convenient. And dip pen, I mean like one of these. Let me see. Let me show it just because I know that. Oh, sorry about that sound. I don't know how loud that was. But like one of these boys. These like you dip it in ink. It's kind of like a quill type dealio, and you use ink. These are great and they are fun, but they're not very convenient for like going to a cafe and drawing and stuff like that. Look at that. I just love drawing these. These feel so good, so fun to draw. Especially because it's like being loose and just being able to do like this. It feels nice, you know? It feels good in my soul. Let me draw some more of these. And the only way you'll figure out like what is enjoyable to you, not just in drawing, in life in general, I guess this applies broadly, is that you have to experiment, you have to try new things. And that's very uncomfortable at first, but that is ultimately how all good things come to you. Like if you think about, even in terms of friendship, like the friends that you love now were strangers to you at some point, and you took the risk of letting them into your world. And if you didn't take that risk and didn't try that experiment, then you would have missed out on all the beauty that came out of that friendship, you know? And I think you should apply that to drawing as well. Like if you are watching this and or you're listening to this and you are someone who like has an interest in drawing but never really given it a shot, then just give it a shot, you know? And the thing too is like you can try it and not tell anyone. If you're worried about being judged if it doesn't go well, then just don't tell anyone. Just try it on your own. Try it in secret. And you could tell people when you feel a little bit better about it. Or just, you could also never tell people about it, you know? It could just be something that you do for yourself, and that's good enough. It doesn't have to be more than that. There we go. I don't even know what this is. It's like a head that's coming out of a plant. It's very abstract and strange. But that's fun, you know? The freedom of drawing. Something I mentioned last time is that I think one of the biggest upsides of drawing versus other mediums is just like you could literally just draw anything and it doesn't have to make sense in terms of physics. You know, something like sculpture, the physics actually have to make sense because it exists in 3D space, but with drawing it doesn't have to make sense and you can just draw whatever you want. Which means that you don't have to put as much pressure on yourself to have it figured out. You know, it's not like you're an architect that has to like make sure the building is safe, because if the building isn't safe, we're in trouble. You know, with drawing, it's sometimes the strangest drawings that are the most evocative. Things that are least realistic that really gets into people's souls. Here we go, just like drawing these strange faces. I had to keep reminding myself that you literally can just draw anything. Like, I mentioned that not because I think you need to listen to it necessarily, but I definitely have to remind myself of that. I think some people that comes a little bit more naturally, just like you can make any marks you want. But I can sense in myself sometimes that I tighten up and I don't have as much fun with it as I could. Like you could just draw a big nose on a head and then covered in flowers, and you don't have to have some deeper meaning behind that. Ultimately, it's about how you feel about it, so if you feel good about it, that's all that matters. I think it's actually wise to treat drawing almost like diary entries in the beginning. That you're just exploring ideas and drawing for yourself, and do a bit of writing as well. You know. And then maybe eventually decide to invite a friend along on this creative journey and draw together. There we go. Quite a bit of drawing there. We're an hour in. Camera's definitely hotter, but it's doing fine. Gonna do a bit of more drawing and then probably call it a day because we're an hour in. I do think like an hour long drawing session is good, especially if you're starting out. If you like love it and you want to keep going, that's great as well. But I do think that like an hour is enough. Pat yourself on the back. Don't force your stuff, especially if you like find yourself feeling more and more frustrated over your drawing session. Try to like relax a little bit and pull back from it. Remind yourself, hey, you are here because this is an activity that you've decided is valuable to you. Therefore, it's worth falling deeply in love with. Sorry, I paused there. Got like enamored by the drawing process. Like, allow yourself to like find the love in it, find the joy in it. And you're the only person that's gatekeeping yourself from it. Like, if you're putting the pressure on yourself that you have to be good before you fall in love with it, then that's you. You're choosing to do that. You can choose to like love something as a beginner. I believe the origin word of amateur is the love of it, doing it for the love of it. I don't know if it's amateur or a different word for beginner, but I know there's a word where the origin of the word is to do it for the love of it. And that is what I think being a beginner allows you to do, you know? You can develop that skill at any time during the practice. And I think it's extremely wise to do so. I think it's a type of wisdom that I wish I had sooner. I also realized that like now I'm 32 years old, I'm like, if I'm not enjoying it or enjoying the activities in my life now, like when am I supposed to enjoy it, you know? Almost like put pressure on yourself to enjoy it. Which maybe like, maybe that's one of the worst ways to enjoy something, but here we go. There we have it. I do think that I might call it a day there. An hour-long stream, an hour-long drawing session. That's fun. Look at these flowers that we drew. Really like playing with a brush pen here. I do want to get better at this, but I also like, this is very, very challenging, so we'll see how far I'm able to push on that. I think I'll always like truly love ballpoint pen just for this kind of, there's something about this. There's something about these type of like messy lines that I really, really adore. But I might just have to research and maybe see like what other pens are out there. Maybe there are things that I just haven't tried yet that will resonate deeply with me, because I want to be able to do this type of work, but also add ink on top of it. And there, I know there are like micron pens and stuff that I can use, so maybe that will be the next exploration. But until then, Hope you're all doing great. As a reminder, again, we have free resources on the website that you can go check out. Links are below. I have a bunch of like free photos of flowers that you use as reference. I have a bunch of free step-by-step drawing tutorials, tons of like free content for beginner artists. And then I also have my big beginner drawing course that are like videos that'll take you step by step through a bunch of practices to like learn how to draw faces and figures, all that stuff. It's all linked below. Make sure to check out the free stuff before you buy anything, just so that you know that my teaching style is effective for you. You know, not all teachers are for all students, so make sure you figure that out before you dive in. And thank you so much for spending time with me. Feel free to leave a comment if you did draw along, because that is always satisfying as a teacher. So yeah, see you guys again soon. Love ya, appreciate ya. Bye. And now I'm going to awkwardly scoot over there and turn this off. Bye bye bye.